you don't want to do it in front of everybody here. There are a number of things that you can get involved in the Alps. And even without going on a meet. Hello, how are you? You're very welcome. Good morning. You can go over there yourselves. It's actually a very accessible place to go to walk in the Alps. They think about the people that are going there more so, I think, than we maybe do here. You arrive, there are no footpaths in places. Come on in, you're very welcome. And you have to kind of work it out for yourself and negotiate your way through things. Far more here, you're far more likely to use a map and a compass here than you would be in the Alps. So in some ways the skills are easier in the Alps, but then you won't be suffering with altitude or snow and ice on a regular basis. So it's just a very different experience. So we're going to head out to Italy this time, primarily for the coffee and the good food, which is very important. How are you? And also, it's a different side to where we were last year, not too far away, but on the opposite side from Switzerland, the cheaper side. Yeah, I mean, every time when you're planning a trip to the Alps, you'll have your pluses and your minuses. How much does the campsite cost? How dear is the food? Are there lifts, or will I have to slog all the way up the hill? How expensive are the huts? Will I need to use them? All of those questions. So every year we kind of try and factor in the costs for that and keep them as low as possible, make it as accessible as possible. Is there enough rock climbing for people that want to climb? Are there enough big peaks to climb? Are there easy grades and harder grades? So you're trying to suit a lot of kind of needs. But everywhere that you do go, you'll find real benefits and really positive reasons to be there. And also you'll find things, how are you? You're very welcome. You'll find things that you say, I'll never go back there because the coffee's too expensive or it's just not nice. So. Where do you think that is? Is it? I don't know, answered on a postcard. It's an Alpine peak though, as opposed to a Scottish peak. Okay. The reason why I'm putting up something like this, I think it looks very like a Scottish peak. It wouldn't, if you get the scale down to it, you've got your approach slopes with the snow, you've got the snow line on rocks for doing your winter routes, your mixed climbing, and you've also got your ridge routes going up the skyline there. Are there glaciers in there? You know what you're looking for? Probably, yeah, down at the bottom. That would be one major difference. So in Scotland, you're walking across in the snow or in Kerry or wherever, but you're not going to fall into anything or through something and disappear into a very deep hole. You're not going to have, how deep do you think the snow is? How deep is the snow we get here and in Scotland? We're talking a few meters at the very most ever. 2 meters, 3 meters in Scotland. Whereas in the Alps, you could have a snowpack that's huge, very deep. And what's happening in that? Can you dig a hole and find out what's going on in the Alps? Not really so easy, but you can maybe in Scotland. So it's just to kind of show you, it looks very similar. So you can walk in there, yeah, I can walk on crampons, or I can climb up a ridge and use a rope a bit now and again, or I could go up one of the faces using ropes. But the other unknown kind of factors that you've maybe not come across before, the glaciers, how to move with a group over crevasses, how to negotiate seracs. The map doesn't have the seracs always in the right places. You can't just navigate because you're a great navigator. You sometimes have to route find so you don't fall into the seracs. You can't always go the same way that you went last year. So that's a very interesting thing to kind of become aware of. I'm still trying to decide which story to tell you, but anyway, I'm not sure what story I told last year, and I don't want you to think that I have epics whenever I go out. I don't. But just to kind of put it into context, and hopefully to kind of inspire you a little bit as well. Like, I went out to climb a route in the Alps. I won't name the mountain in case I told you this story last year. And what started out to be a 12-hour big boot scramble around Vidif up a big alpine ridge and cut to a high peak became 12 hours of climbing in Scotland in the worst weather you can ever imagine, and having to snow hole and dig into the ground after falling off a serac, tied still to my partner because I couldn't get the knot undone. So we both went whizzing down a serac and landed, and then got up and walked away and snow holed because it was the safest thing to do. at that point. So, and that was, as his mother said, two experienced climbers, and what the hell were you doing? You're supposed to know what you're doing. So it can happen, but you can do a lot of practice and prep to prevent that. So Scotland really helped me in that, because I knew how to climb in very wet, white-out, spindrift going up your sleeves and down everything, getting drenched and freezing cold, wet gloves, wet hands. I knew how to snow hole, I knew how to survive, which probably saved us from getting frostbite. So you kind of just, and also the endurance element of staying, keeping warm, keeping going, and knowing when to stop. So Scotland, the winter experience you have here, the walking experience you have here, it's all vital, I think, towards getting a good experience in the Alps and not having an epic when you fall off at snow hole. Okay, or don't snow if you don't know how to. So there we go. You're still with me. So there. So this is just some nice pictures of people traveling. What's different about this kind of walking group compared to the group you'd normally walk with? Yeah, they could be roped together. It's kind of hard to tell. Yeah, so they potentially are roped together. We wouldn't do that just walking. Well, I don't think so anyway. What else? Yeah, you can actually see the ropes sagging between the front two, definitely, and the next two. What else is different? Yeah, they would just walk in one line. Why do you think that might be? Yeah, exactly. So the others can stop them falling into it. A bit unsociable, but done for a reason. Okay, but yet you can all walk, and you can probably tie a knot onto yourself and so on. So both go to the Alps for different reasons. These are out in their shorts and t-shirts, doing a trekking route along ridges. No snow, no crevasses, no ice. And like that, very accessible. If you look left or right at this photograph, there'll probably be a signpost telling you how far, how long, where the nearest hut is, which direction to go, and a fairly well-marked track or pathway for you to travel along. It's probably at the upper end of kind of terrain for tracks, but it's very accessible. So you could go and get a map, look at a route, follow it, and be fairly confident that you'd follow it fine. So even though we do provide training courses when we're out there for folk that want to get some new skills, it's also a place to go and just talk to the guides that are working there, talk to the instructors, ask other people, what did you do, what was it like, are there any issues that we need to be wary of, how was the snow, all of those things, get chatting every evening with people. And just, I mean, there's, I think, a registration fee of €10, and people just rock up and take advantage of the knowledge and meet people to climb with. That's where I think you'll meet some very long-term climbing partners. When I say climbing, I mean mountaineering, rock climbing, walking, whatever you're doing, going up in general. So it's an opportunity to meet other climbers. So a little bit more of a close-up at that group that we saw. We're walking terrain. If you put that into grass, it's not particularly steep, not particularly difficult, but they're roped, they're wearing crampons, axes, still quite light. Very sunny, but they need long sleeves so they don't get cut on their arms if they fall over. And the axes there, a lot of this stuff is precautionary. They don't fall into crevasses very often. They don't go whizzing down slopes and need to brake with their axes very often. But you know, the crampons are there to stop them from doing that. They can move efficiently and not be sliding back down the hill again. But all those inherent risks around them, you can see behind the group on the right, the Serac field. See those the cracks going across the slope there, and a close-up there at the top of the crevasse, and just to the right of that group there. And they're spaced so people don't all fall into the hole. Okay. Hopefully some of the others will keep them from falling in. So we're choosing to go into Aosta. It's actually a great spot in many ways. You've the Matterhorn, Mont Blanc, just kind of up and down the valley, so you've quite spectacular terrain. There's Grand Paradiso. We're not going down to the Grand Paradiso. You see Courmayeur out left. We're just to the right. You can see Valle Aosta here, and in that direction. Courmayeur would be another popular place as well for climbers as for walkers. And it means you've got a variety of places to fly into. In terms of transport in the valley, this is just there's 3 of these maps I have. I think I've just put the tracking version up. You can see all the footpaths and ski runs and the peaks then up along the top. It's kind of very similar to Sasgrund in so many ways, that there's a lot of 4,000 metre peaks in the area, which for some people, that's really what they want. And good, comfortable standard, not too difficult. Plenty of opportunity for people to do long VDIF type scramble routes up high though. Take off, 3 or 4,000 metre peaks in a day. That kind of thing is possible. So we run like hut to hut trekking courses, also kind of alpine skills, climbing skills, walking skills, mountaineering skills courses. And we run a number of workshops too. So there's plenty of opportunity to top up on a few skills. So yeah, it's for everyone. We had last year a youth initiative, so there were 16 to 19-year-olds, 20 odd of them. A few of the parents came as well, just to have a bit of fun under the guise of looking out for them. So like you would see school children out with their teacher walking these tracks. They're not guides, they're just out walking the tracks. And you'd also see people with their climbing gear doing hard routes, new routes. So it really is for everyone. One of the key things when you're at the Alps that I found when I fell upon a meet by accident a good bit back is meeting other people. It is exactly what it says on the tin, but I didn't really understand a meet for what it is. I would have steered clear of them because of what I thought it was about. But in reality, you're there to meet people who do what you do. So I know there's going to be in the corner of the campsite a bunch of climbers that don't like to maybe mix so much with the rest of them because they're doing their thing. And they're happy out and they're independent and they're doing whatever they want to do, and there'll be a bunch in the other kind of wide-eyed wondering what to do and picking the brains of people around them, and another bunch, so there'll be a whole range of people at different levels. But it's that notion of networking and getting to know people and building up a bit of trust. They've been holding you on the rope, or they held you when you fell into the crevasse, or they stopped you falling off on a climb. You're kind of building all of that up as well with people. But you generally will make friends that you can go back next year with, or stay on for another week after or two and go and do some more routes, be they walking, climbing, scrambling, whatever. We bring in international guides to work with the groups, as is in some countries it's compulsory, you have to, but also when a guide, if you think of the decision making a guide has to make, from the ski meet we were on last year, the guide was trying to decide, do I risk travelling for 500 metres, maybe a kilometre, in very definitely ground that's going to avalanche with this group, or do I go for 3 kilometres in that direction on ground that's very definitely going to avalanche? And that was the level of decision making that guide had to work with. And we're going to spread out, so when one of you does get avalanched, we won't all be in there. We'll be someone out of there to dig you out. So that is one of the reasons why we'd bring guides in to run courses. It's also a requirement anyway. But the level of experience of the guides coming in to climb, ski to a very high standard, both in winter and in summer on snow, ice, rock, and so forth. So pick their brains. You're very welcome, come on in. So pick their brains. Even if you're not doing a course, they're quite happy to talk climbing like 24/7. So pick their brains while they're there. And we have a great barbecue and crack in the middle. So bring your instruments and your voices and your dancing shoes. And yeah, we just run them at cost. We don't aim to compete with other service providers. So a bit of an idea of the terrain. You can see these guys are sweating. They're trying to keep the sun off them. So that'll give you an indication of the kind of kit you'll need to bring. Kind of have all the seasons, so we're used to that. It's going to be very cold sometimes and very dry and hot sometimes. Snow will be quite different to Scotland, I hope. It's drier. You don't get so wet when you roll around in it. And there's plenty of it generally, so it's just a different experience. So you may need your crampons in Scotland when you're walking, but you may not. But you will definitely need crampons walking up the high peaks in the Alps. The same with an axe. And if you're thinking as well about weight, you're going to buy equipment light as you can, because you'll be carrying it a lot of the time. The tracks down low, you won't need any of that equipment on, so you're carrying them. So have a good chat, have a good research on the internet, look at the weights of axes and crampons, how often are you going to use them, what are you going to use them for. If you're planning to go out to the Alps every year, or if you're going to go to Scotland next year or whatever, just have a think and give people a buzz in outdoor shops that sell that equipment. Go onto the forums or ring up. To a point, I'll give you some advice after a bit, like go make a decision yourself now and head on. But in so many ways, you've got boots. You could have 6 pairs depending on what you're doing. So you might hybrid that'll do a few things for you. I had a quick look downstairs for boots that might be appropriate to the Alpine meet. Something quite rigid if you're going to wear a crampon, so that the crampon won't flex out of the boot won't flex out of the crampon. Not too aggressive unless you're planning to do ice. So they can be very attractive on the stands with nice teeth and very vicious looking crampons. So, have a look for something that would be more suitable from maybe mountaineering into climbing, so you can kind of climb through a lot of experience from walk and straight into climbing then. Okay, so a mountaineering crampon towards climbing rather than a walking crampon, because then you'll be able to do more things, but don't go for the extreme unless by then you'll know what you want. So a lot of the Alps is to do with the situation you're in. If that were in Ireland, I'd expect people would want a handrail or something, I don't know. Would they think that was quite serious terrain? They trip up on that. There's probably a via line that they may be able to hold on to a cable with on the left there, so that when they traverse that, they won't fall off. There's quite a bit of via ferrata, ironway, that you can use. It was kind of a military thing, I suppose, to enable people to travel through the mountains on terrain, like the last slide, relatively safely, so that if they did fall, they wouldn't go too far. I know a lot of climbers, myself included, used to look down my nose at via ferrata because it's not proper anything, but actually it's a great way to get into very scrambling kind of ground, and can be quite steep, quite technical. Route finding sometimes can be difficult when the lines disappear down into the snow again, and you're then left on a snow slope with nothing to clip onto. So, being prepared, have a short rope with you, and, use the right gear. Don't just try and work away on a couple of slings, those of you that maybe are climbers, because it's not necessarily designed for that kind of shock loading. So ask advice. Definitely try them out. They're good crack, if nothing else, and they can get you into places that you wouldn't necessarily usually go. So yes, just some people enjoying the top there of the climbing route. So because the peaks are so high, people quite often choose to spend a night in a hut so they can get an early start and get on the snow before the sun does. Huts generally are quite hotel-like, usually in and around the 60 to 70 euros a night, full board, so you get a huge, bigger than you can manage to eat, dinner, and it keeps coming until you're full. It's quite expensive to eat if you're kind of just traveling for the day and you're going for lunch and a glass of water. Water can be quite expensive. It's often useful to bring tea bags with you, so you can just get hot water from them, which is cheaper than bottled water, and then just throw a tea bag in for a bit of flavour. Or they'll do things like marsh tea, which you can fill your flask with. It's like a hot, soupy, sugary tea type mixture, but it's quite nice, and it's relatively cheap, so you can fill your flasks from that and not have to carry too much liquid up the hill. And it's like a hostel, I suppose. You've got your duvet and your sheets. They're pretty clean these days. Some have proper toilets, some don't. Some have showers, some don't. Some have running water, some don't. And you learn very quickly how to book a hostel or a hut, and not just rock up on the doorstep and hope they'll have space for you. So, a bit of preparation around that. But again, you can ask when you get there about that. So if you're factoring in cost-wise, if you're planning to go and try and keep it as low cost as possible, consider what you're going to do with your routes that you're going to choose. Does it require a hut or a lift? There are lots of lifts in the area, so you can get a lift up and then go do a peak, or you can stay in a hut and maybe do 2 or 3 peaks from it. So, weigh those things up. All right, so some of the courses, some of the courses on offer that we would pretty much put on every year. We've 2 hut-to-hut walks, possibly the same route twice, depending on what people want. They would be run over 6 days, usually with a rest day. So sometimes it's the last day because you've just decided to stay up all week and just travel on and make a journey. So there's plenty of options. There are many hut-to-hut walks that are a lot longer than 5 or 6 days. So depending on what the group want, that will dictate what sections, which pieces, where we go. And we'll bring in international mountain leaders to direct those courses. That's the qualification to be doing that. So they'll be able to bring you, show you, and you'll be staying in huts then every night after you start. That's the Via Ferrata. You can just see the rail along left. And people choose to or not to clip onto them. I don't think those guys have harnesses on, so I assume they're just walking in hand with it. Because you're moving over exposed terrain. We then have 3 levels, if you like, 3 levels of Alpine course. So if you've never been out in the Alps before, or maybe never worn crampons, axes, used a rope to move together or make belays, any of that kind of stuff, then the first level will be an introduction to Alpine mountaineering or walking. And it's not showing you how to walk, it's showing you how to walk in the Alps. It's showing you how to use your axe and your crampons and how to put them on and move efficiently. So there's quite a lot in it. Planning routes, looking at the weather forecast, booking huts, all of that type of thing. So hopefully kind of by the end of it, you should be able to mind yourself and go up and do routes within yourself, within your grade or your level, and know when to put a rope on, when to take it off. Those are really tough decisions, when to put your crampons on, when to not wear them. And it will go through those skills, and they run over a 5 or a 3 day course. So if you've done a bit before, it might be that you just need a few days, or you might need no days, but you can choose. So that's the intro. There's an intermediate and an advanced. So the intermediate will be moving on from that into more difficult terrain, more ridges, more scrambly, roped sections, and the ratio drops then, so people can do more of that. And they're skills courses, they're not guided. They're not there to bring you and drag you up stuff that you pretty much couldn't go near yourself. So, and the same with the advanced would be a climbing course. So ideally, it will enable you to lead your own routes, and someone will be there facilitating that and minding you. They might put you on a rope now and again and lead you to demonstrate something or to get you over a section that maybe they don't feel you're able for yet. But equally so, the desire is to get you two on the rope and you lead the route, and then the person will come along and teach you as and when you need to and help you make your decisions. Okay, so that would be the ethos of any of these training courses. They're not there as guided. The hut to hut is to some degree, but again, it's to teach you how to do it yourself. So that would be, if you're planning to do a course like that, I would suggest you try and book a bit of time after, so you can go off and try it out, go and do stuff while it's fresh, while there's still guides there to bounce ideas off, and people that you can meet up with to go out and do stuff with that you've probably been out with for a few days before. So you've built up a bit of trust. And that's really important, actually, that you probably won't know the person you're climbing with. You might not know the person you climb with. Don't assume anything. Don't assume they can belay or they can put on crampons, or that their tent is fine for the mountains and their stove works, and then get there and find that they don't and they can't. So do a bit of checking with each other as well. It's only fair on yourselves. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, the bookings went up. When was it? Probably a week back, I think. Not even a week. So we'll see now once this it's put up on the website and the bookings are out there now. So yeah, but every year it would be more, and I've only been doing it 3 years, but with more the intermediate to advanced that would be busier. But some years it swings the other way. Because I think potentially because people feel less confident at the upper end, they want to be sure as well they've got a climbing partner. They've got someone to climb with at that great level that they want to climb at. And sometimes it's an expensive climbing partner. But if you've got 2 weeks, that's what you want to do, then, you just make it happen. So yeah, they're quite popular. They're on a 1-to-2 ratio, so it doesn't take many people to run them as well. I try and get a mixture. So I would offer the workout to Irish guides, then I would offer it out to people that I've worked with before that I know, but also I would try and get someone local to the area because it's just worth so much. They know all the little crags and the little this, that and the other and the good places to go because it's their stomping ground. So I try and do a mixture and generally look for them the shorter courses because they're there anyway, and get them to do short courses back to back and stuff. Like we've had some amazing guides work with us in Ilford. We had like a 4 times world champion at ice and rock climbing work, and other gurus from the area. Like they're just amazing and understated. So yeah, ideally we could colour some of those guys as well and gals. So, yeah, these nice pictures again. Just to give you an idea of the range, it's not all snow and ice, and I know there's been a lot of interest in the climbing end of the meet. Hello, how are you? You're very welcome, come on in. If you can actually see quite close to, I don't know, how many of you climb? Sport climb or wall climb? Yeah, anyone not? Pretty much a good chunk of you. So you're probably familiar then with bolts. You can just see one in the near. And again, this kind of comes back to this level of accessibility. They'll bolt things, they'll put lower rafts so you can abseil down quickly. Even in high mountain routes, it's not just the low valley crags. You can go and do sport routes on bolts or, multi-pitching. In your t-shirts and shorts, it's like climbing in Spain in the summer. And then you can be wearing your full-on winter gear up higher. So there's a whole range of stuff and fun to have in the mountains there, including the climbing wall, I believe, in the area, if anyone's really desperate to get something in the evening. We run a number of workshops, so if you've never led, I know actually, Jay, you were on one of it last year, a Learn to Lead type course for sports. I think you were leading by the end of the day, afternoon. Yeah, like it's a very quick, it's a much faster way to teach people to lead climb when you're on boats than on trad. So it means people get into climbing far easier because they can. And especially apparently women because they get scared, apparently, of falling off. More so, this is what I've been told. I can get away with saying it because I'm a woman. But apparently they think more about their kids when they're climbing, if they have kids, or their potential kids if they don't have kids. So if you can remove that notion of fear by using bolts and lower rafts, then you're more likely to climb and lead. It must be a primitive sense of responsibility or whatever it is, but anyway, it just means women are far more likely to climb on boats if they're there. They're far less likely to be worried about the fear. And everybody gets scared, by the way, men and women. They all suffer from fear now and again. It's important, it's real. So you don't have to do a course, no you don't. I'd actually prefer folk to be able to do their own thing because, that's what it's about. But if you feel you need a bit of training, then get some. There's always something to learn. So yeah, that's €10 to register. Usually gets you a t-shirt or a top. I'm going to try and get a techie top this time, it might be more use. And it's really vitally important in this campsite that you pre-book. It's just the way they work. Elsewhere it's like rock up and just book when you get there. Last year people pre-booked in Satsgrund, and this year the campsite we've got a section of the campsite. It's not as big as the previous sites we've been to, so I block booked provisionally, and on the understanding that we'll confirm numbers. So get in and book as early as you can, but tell people that you're with the MI meet, and then they'll know to kind of allocate you. So they're very nice, and they have, I think, they're called Margarita, and I think they have barbecue stands around the place, and they're very accessible. It's a lovely wee town. So equipment, we've talked a small bit about it. I have an equipment list. Depending on what, if you're doing a course, there'll be equipment lists, but if you're not doing a course, you're welcome to look at the equipment lists. It's kind of been divided between what you might need on an intro, an intermediate, and an advanced course. But like that, you know where we are. So if you're not sure, generally it's boots, crampons, and axe. What type? What's too much? What's not enough? How much should I spend? Which of these two types? Ropes, what length of rope? What kind of treatment on it? Those kind of things. So just send us an email and we can try and give you some advice or direct you if you need it. You're not pestering us. And there's just, you know where the website is to find a booking form if you wish. There are discounts for folk who book early, which makes it easier for me to staff if there are bookings for courses. So the 1st of May is the first deadline, and I think it's 20% discount, 10, sorry. And there are group bookings as well, so it's all very clearly laid out on the website. I have a booking form and an info pack, which is also on the website. So you can have a read through that, scrutinize it, and ask as well. It's really... There's a number of airports you can fly into. We've got the Alp pack there, actually. Yeah. There's a number of airports you can fly into, and the drive is kind of not too horrendous from the airport in, or you can get a bus or a taxi if there's a number of you. It's usually cheaper. You can hire a ski bus or a van. Once you're there, like some people choose